into the kindergarten, K through 12 system, ready to learn. And this is how we're, in the long run, we will reduce costs and education.
Thank you. So we'll start with you on this question. If you have children, where do they go to school, or where did they go to school K-12? And why did you choose this school?
Oh, I get to tell this story. My husband and I were in Charlottesville, Virginia, where he had just finished a medical residency. And he's a specialist. And we could have moved any place in the country. We literally could have moved to any major metropolitan city in the country. And we did our research and we thought, you know what? Minnesota is the place to raise kids. There's good, strong public education in Minnesota. So we picked Minnesota. And then within Minnesota, we were going to live in the metro area. And again, we did our research. We wanted a diverse population, but we wanted a population and a culture where they really valued education. Now, we could have said Eden Prairie. That might have been a choice. But, just at the time, it was Hopkins Public Schools. And so we actually we said, here's the parameters, real estate agent. Here's where the borderline is for Hopkins Public Schools. And that's what we selected. And we did that more than 25 years ago, that we moved here and started to send our kids to school here. And we never, ever regretted that decision.
So,
We'll beat that in this
yeah, that'll be tough. So,
we'll be in Eden Prairie next.
our kids were raised in Chanhassen. That's where they went to school, and so it's not Senate District 48 yet. And so they had a great experience. So the Southwest Metro, as all of us know, has one of the greatest educational systems in the country, I believe, having lived it as a parent and a teacher. And so our kids graduate from there. When my wife, there was only enough money for one of us to finish school way back in the day. So she went in full-time job. We finished sending me to school. And then when the kids were little, she decided to stay at home for a few years with the kids and then finish her degree. And so she ended up becoming a teacher, a second career later on in life. And so we're both very proud to have been Eden Prairie teachers. And so their kids grew up seeing the importance of education. They saw their mother go back to school in her 40s, little subtle messages like that we were able to send those kids. And so my son went to the University of Minnesota, proud alumni as his father is, and of the U, and my daughter is currently finishing school, and they've had a nice life here in Minnesota public schools.
Sorry, I had a child looking for who's picking her up, so I had to respond. Needless to say, it's not me. Sometimes life interferes. All right, our next question, and we'll start with candidate Steve for this one. For someone who has a child with autism that attends school, I've heard of experiences where my child got bullied. What would you do, or what kind of program would you offer a child or group of children that cannot be understood?
That's a great question. Who wrote that? Thank you.
It's not my child, it's my niece.
Yeah.
She also got bit.
Sorry, I was deciphering.
I don't know if we're getting better at diagnosing things like that, or if it's really getting more prevalent in our society. Either way, there's not enough funding for students with autism. And as a teacher, I've seen over the 31 years in the classroom, 33, more and more students with those needs. And they're wonderful people, wonderful students, some of my favorite because of their wonderful differences that they bring to the classroom and add that element of perfection to my classroom. But they still have special needs. And we can do such a better job, and it's a problem. I mean, it's 30 years ago, maybe in a class of 33, maybe one child had a IEP, individual education plan, and now in my average class of 33, it's 5 or 6. So as I said, either A, we're getting better at diagnosing it, which is good, or we're missing something else, that the numbers are increasing. Regardless, I have had a great run with kids like that, and I'm proud of it. But we can do better, and we will. We'll figure it out. Put all options on the table. Figure out where the money's going to come from. Meet those kids' needs.
All right, so, I don't have a direct answer, because I haven't, I'm not a teacher right now, and I'm not, right now I'm not hands-on in the classroom and understanding what the issues are and how we can best address them. We have a family friend whose youngest has Asperger's. And one thing I know about their family situation is that it's intense. Every day they're dealing with the issue, or when he was in school, every day they were dealing with the issues that he had, working with him at home with the homework, always in communication with the teacher. And so part of what I know about this is that it's an intense issue that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of attention to make sure that every child is safe, every child is being educated, every child is also in a supportive environment, and supporting that child and the children around them understand that it's a supportive environment. So these are the issues when we're talking about special ed, and that's an example of why it's expensive, why it's taking that much, why it does take the funding, and why we need to keep advocating for that funding. So I don't have a specific, but I know that this is an issue that we need to care about.
And let's get that federal government to kick in the money they promised us 40 years ago.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we're gonna move to the closing statements, because we wanted to also allow some informal time to interact with the candidates. So with our final question, we'll start with Lori for this one. The achievement gap refers to the differences in academic performance between groups of students. Closing the achievement gap is critical to the social and economic well-being of Minnesota, and yet the state lacks near the bottom in closing that gap. What are your ideas for closing the achievement gap for Minnesota students?
Okay, I was actually expecting that question. So good. I'm glad that we have it, because it is one of the issues of the day in education, is our achievement gap. And so there's a couple things that I think that are important in addressing it. One, that we're starting and talking about de-aggregating data. So right now, we just see big groups of people and where they fall on the spectrum of how they're doing in school. And what we need to do is more of a deep dive on the data, so that we understand within subgroups what's going on. It would not be hard to get a bad picture of me, I know. So I think that's part of it, is that we really need to keep collecting data so that we understand the problem better about the achievement gap. So that's the first part of my answer, is I put a high priority on the data and make this issue be data-driven on what our solutions are. The second thing that I think that we can talk about reasonably is that it keeps coming back to, it seems to be an issue of income, of children living in poverty is where we see the achievement gap. So it's whatever's causing those children to live in poverty. And that what we need to keep addressing is the whole child and their whole life and their whole situation. So a homeless child, or a child that is insecure about where they're going to be living, a child that has food insecurity, these are children that are not going to be succeeding in school, and we will see a gap in their performance compared to the average child that has a supportive home and isn't worried about where my next meal is going to come from. So I think we do talk about schools and those wraparound services, which just stabilize the home life, make sure that they are secure, have a place to live, have a place to go home to at the end of the school day, and that we engage the parents. We find a way to engage the parents. So those are some of the things that I think we would be looking at.
So the achievement gap, the opportunity gap is real. And in today's paper, the editorial in the Star Tribune was all about 13% of Minnesota children miss 15 days of school or more a year. And clearly, in addition to everything Lori just said, the people that need to get involved, some of the people that need to get involved is the community. And one of our heroes once said it takes a village, and I think we need to start, when you see a kid and he looks like he should be in school and he's hanging out, where are you and I in that formula, and making sure you'd say to the kid, why aren't you in school? And so let's get these kids to school. The community, in addition to everything Lori just said. Every parent involved in this achievement gap, they all want to be heard. Every kid, as I said earlier, everybody wants to be heard. And I think the number one thing I think we could really do as a state is get that 46% of number 46 in the student to counselor ratio in our schools, because that's when the best way to deal with this achievement gap and the opportunity gap, and get these kids going, and so that they can start realizing their dream, whatever it might be. And so let's do that better job at that, because I've seen it firsthand, and it bums you out when you see those kids in class that just don't seem to be getting it, and for whatever reason, through no fault of their own, and they're falling behind, and it breaks your heart as an educator, as a parent, as a taxpayer, as a citizen, to see kids in your classroom that just are sitting in the back, they never sit in the front, and they just want to get through the day. And so what can we do to make those kids want to come to school, so they don't miss 15 days of school, and get them going so that they too can achieve everything that every parent wants for every child.
Great, so now we'll move to the closing statements, and in our alternating, back to candidate Steve.
Thank you again for coming out tonight, Legislative Action Committee, fellow candidates, attendees, and supporters and volunteers of the three of us. We need environmental, physical, and mental health programs that are all interconnected. We need an economy where everyone who works hard and plays by the rules can live with the dignity of financial stability. We need to continually be improving our wonderful educational systems so that kids have the opportunity to come to school, ready to learn, and leave pursuing their dreams. We need a transportation system for the 21st century, one that keeps us connected to this wonderfully vibrant regional economy. What we don't need is more partisan politics and entrenched politicians, which can only lead to more gridlock. We need a vibrant political process consisting of compromising and coming to common ground for the common good, to create another Minnesota miracle. I will listen to my constituents and pay attention to our district. Again, my name is Steve Swodzinski, and I'm asking for your vote on November 8th.
Well, I also want to say thank you. I know that the people that are here tonight, you've given up a beautiful evening to be here. And you're here because you know it's important. We're talking about education, we're talking about public education, and the issues that are facing us going forward. So that's the choice, though, that we've all made. We've made the choice to be here. We've made the choice to support public education. And if I'm elected, I will remember, you know, that's why I got into the race, and that's why people are supporting me. Just to say again, you know, what I will bring to this job is that I have experience working with people, working with teams, finding compromise, working towards consensus. You know, I believe that most of our decisions should be based on data. It should be based on information. It should be based on facts, and not party ideology. And if we can start moving in that direction, then I think what you'll see is that we do come up with better solutions, and that we do come up with more legislation that has bipartisan agreement and bipartisan support. And that's what I would be working for if I'm elected as your state representative. So thank you, Steve, for being here as another candidate. It's to face the people in a public setting with the cameras rolling. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's worth it because we are on record and what we say is what we mean, and that's why we're here tonight. So thank you all. My name's Lori Pryor. I hope I earned your vote.
On behalf of the Legislative Action Coalition for the Hopkins School District, as well as the Special Education Advisory Council, I want to thank you all for coming. Thank the candidates for being a part of our forum tonight and our proxy. And as I said, the candidates will still be here, so we have some time for some informal interaction. And main thing, get out and vote on election day.
Mr. Moderator, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It seems like there was no introduction, we're obviously missing one candidate. Was there any mention of where the candidate is? Or,
I was not the one taking their responses, so I don't know. All I knew was who was going to be here. They didn't tell me why they weren't going to be here.
okay.
I was not the one to ask that. Catherine Callahan is our one who gets RSVPs, so she would have the
want to know.
information.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. I just don't have the answer. All right, that's the end of our formal time. Next.